Hi guys, it's me, Letitia, the Crafty Curator, and welcome to a very special edition of Flossmas Day 11, sponsored by Off the Grid Needle Arts. And by sponsored, I just mean she asked me to do it. I'm not getting paid for anything here. So as you know, our friend Caroline from Off the Grid Needle Arts has been hosting a series of daily videos for the entire month of December called Flossmas. And there are several other crafters that are, or stitchers rather, that are contributing to the daily videos. I have not been contributing to the daily videos, but I have been contributing in my own special way. But she did ask me to hold a video for Flossmas Day 11 with something, talking about something that is near and dear to my heart, and I know appeals to many of you out there. So I just wanted to take a moment for Flossmas to talk about skin conversions. So particularly around the holiday season, one of the reasons why she asked me to talk about this in particular is because we see Santas. We see all types of Santas, and they're usually just one ethnicity because that's what we know, that's what we're used to. But there are a lot of people out there, people of color, that want to stitch projects that resemble them or resemble their family or their ethnic background. So a lot of times when I come across a pattern or a project rather that is Caucasian, which a lot of them tend to be, I take it upon myself to convert their skin tone. I mentioned a while back, I did a video talking about mirabilias in particular, and I said that it was my intention every single time I stitch a mirabilia, I'm going to change her ethnicity. She might be Black, she might be Asian, she might be Hispanic, she might be Native American. It doesn't matter. And she might be Caucasian. It doesn't matter. I just want to use that as an opportunity to celebrate not only the beauty of the design of the pattern, but also take it to that next level and celebrate diversity in ethnicity and culture. So a lot of times with Santas in particular, going back to Santas, we might use, thinking of the Mill Hill Santas, for example. Mill Hill Santas has an entire series of Santas from so many different countries, so many different geographical areas of the United States or other areas of the world where they may not technically be a Caucasian skin tone. If you take a South American Santa, for example, he's more likely to be brown skin, and that's something that I, for one, would be more inclined to convert. Fun fact about Letitia, I've never stitched a Santa, like ever. I typically do not stitch anything that is seasonal or holiday related. I have nothing against that. I celebrate a multitude of holidays, love all the seasons. It's not my jam. So when I was looking for a Santa to stitch, I was struggling with that a little bit because, of course, for this video rather, of course I want to stitch something that I would, you know, put on my wall or something that I would be inclined to use, and Santa's just not my jam. So I decided to go with an angel, but the angel that I chose, it was a Teresa Kogut angel. I was surprised. I was stunned at how much confetti was in that angel that I chose. So that did not happen. So I decided tonight to make it a little bit more realistic about the steps that I actually go through. If I have a pattern, if I have a design that I choose and I say, okay, I know I'm going to want to make her a Black woman or Hispanic woman, whatever the case may be, I want her skin to be of a different skin tone, or I want her hair to be different. What do I look at? What are those steps that I take to make that conversion? And I know that there are a lot of people out there that kind of go through those same challenges, like, okay, this is the pattern I have, but I don't want her to be a white woman. I want her to look like me. What do I do? And that's why I'm here tonight. Just in case anybody wants to create a Santa, whether it's a Santa or a Mirabilia or a Joan Elliott, whatever the case may be, it's very easy to make a conversion. And you can use the same process if you want to change your dress, if you want to change the color of an outfit. It's really a matter of picking out the main color and using that as a guide to go with what other colors are going to complement that main color in comparison to the colors that the designer chose for you, if that makes sense. So to start with that, I have a very small kit. I thought I would kind of go in different stages of difficulty, where you might have a very small kit. I mentioned Mill Hill earlier. This is the Mill Hill Celeste Angel. She's a very small kit, as you can see. And I chose her because I thought she was super cute. Look at her hair. It's a little angel. In my mind, I was like, oh my gosh, it's a little angel with an afro. Right? So when I saw her, she's cute as a button, right? But she is somebody that I would be likely to convert. So when you're looking at a Mill Hill kit like this, the odds are Mill Hill is only going to have one main color. This looks really blurry, so I hope it's showing. It's a little bit better. Odds are with Mill Hill, they're only going to have maybe one or two colors in their face as far as skin goes. You're going to have that peachy color for her skin tone, as you can see. And then you see the rosy color in her cheeks and her mouth and her eyes. So starting with the simplest thing, her eyes are blue, okay? If I wanted to make her an African-American angel, I would change her eyes from whatever color blue comes in that kit. I would just make it simple. I would go with the 3371 to make her eyes brown. If I wanted it to be a lighter brown, maybe not as dark as 3371, maybe I would go with an 839. Probably the best toolkit you can have. I'm making sure I just said the right color. Yeah. The best toolkit you can have is either one of those cards that have all the DMC colors in it, which I have. I just don't know where I put it because this is my life. Where you can look at all of the colors of DMC, or you can just, if you have something like this, I have my full set of DMC. Real life, let's show you what the other side looks like. It's a hot mess. There's a little ponytail holder in there because that's what you keep in your DMC kit, right? But this is the side that we're going to show on TV. So this is my full set of DMC. So like I said, if I want a dark eye color, I'm going to typically go with 3371 for a dark brown eye, but if I don't want it that brownish black, I might go with a 938. It's whatever you want it to be. If you want her to have green eyes, you would choose a color where in your mind looks like green eyes. It might be an olivey green if she has like hazel eyes. It might be something where it's more of an emerald green. It's whatever you want it to be. But when I typically do a skin conversion, I'm going to do a brown eye. And for something as simple as a Mill Hill kit, I would just go, okay, her eyes are going to be 3371 or 938, whatever the case may be. For her skin tone, there's only one color for her skin. My go-to color for skin tone is 435. I typically go to this because this color, when I look at it, it's a nice caramelly hazelnut brown that's not going to show up properly on this screen because it's nighttime, and again, this is my life. So let's see here. So this is 435. I guess that's about right. So obviously it's not a direct match to my skin, but this is what I typically go to as a starting point as a main color. So for this little angel where you see the peach, I would say, okay, her skin's going to be 435. And because of the color of her cheeks, which are a nice pale rosy color, I probably wouldn't change that. And with kits like this, I'm not trying to reinvent the wheel or make it any more difficult than it has to be. You can change the color of the cheeks, but when I'm looking at the colors that come in the kit, that color rosy cheek is realistic to me. So I would use this color, tannish, coppery brown, for the skin. Change the eye color. I'll probably change her hair color from, or maybe I won't. This hair color is a reddish brown. Okay. And I might change it to something a little darker brown. I may not. It depends on what you want it to be. But a lot of times, and I'm just sticking with the simplicity of this type of kit. For this type of kit, you only might need to make just a few color changes. You don't have to worry about matching up different skin tones and, you know, different shading options. You're just literally switching out one color for another. So that's starting at the simplest of kits. So something like this, I would do everything as is and change out her skin tone, keep the cheeks, keep the mouth, change her eyes. I might change the hair color. And again, it's to whatever you want it to be. My hair is dark brown with coppery highlights. So I might choose a color that is a dark brown for this type of kit. And I wouldn't go into detail about highlights. I wouldn't do all that for a Mill Hill kit. Okay. So that's something as simple as switching up a Mill Hill kit. Then you have something that is maybe a little bit more difficult. I pulled out this pattern. This is a Design Works kit called Glamour. Now this is a pattern. I absolutely love this lady. I love her. I love everything about her. I love her hair. Okay. I love her dress. I love everything about this picture, but I would change the skin tone. So when I look at this, just looking at it right here, I automatically know it's not going to be a huge change because I can see just looking at the picture, most of the skin is one color, but I don't know if you can see there the cleft in her back, that shadowing, that's something that's going to be a different color. It looks like her foot and her leg might be one color. So from here, I would look at my pattern. And sure enough, the skin, from what I can see, her back, her neck, her chin, her arm, is two colors. And her foot and leg are the same two colors. So I wouldn't worry about that's not a big deal. So the difference between changing just one color, now I have to think about shading, right? So if I want her to be, if I want that shading to match up, I have to consider there are two colors that I'm using now, and I want that cleft in her back to be to have that definition that she does as a Caucasian woman. I want that same definition as a woman of color. So I'm going to go to the threads that came in the kit. And for those two colors, I have the dominant color, which is a very pale peach. Okay, I'm going to show these to you. And then the second color is just a little bit darker, but it's still peach. And one thing that you can look at, especially with these kits that have names of the colors, you see it's literally called that, light peach and peach. So you're in the same color family. So that automatically tells me I'm going to pick two colors that are in the same color family, but one is just going to be slightly darker than the other. And just like here, I don't know if you can see it. You probably, oh, there you go. If I'm looking at the colors that are in the number one are a very pale peach. And number 2 is that accent color that's going to be in the cleft of her back. So I'm going to look in my colorway or stand in the aisle at Joann's or Michael's, and I'm going to first look for that color. What color do I want her skin tone to be? Something that I tend to do, it depends if I'm switching up the skin tone. Say, if I want her to be a light brown skin or a light tan skin that looks similar to me, I'm going to start with 435. So using that as an example, I'm going to go to what I've already said is my go-to skin color. I think it's a good idea, if you have an idea of what you like, have that go-to skin color. Mine is usually 435. And this, you know, if it's a wide array of women of color, but for me, I would go with this. And I know, because I'm looking at the difference in shading, right, for my kid, I need a color that's in the same family, just a little bit darker. And I know that it's in the same family and a little bit darker because my color key tells me I'm looking at light peach and peach. So I'm looking at 435 and I'm looking in my master file, my master set, or I'm standing in Joann's and I'm looking at the wide array of colors, and I know I want something that's just a little bit darker than this, but in the same color family. So I'm probably going to pick 434 or 430. Let me see. 434 or 433. I'm probably going to go with 433. So these are my 2 colors for the skin. Here's my main color. There's my contrast color. In my kit, there's my main color. There's my contrast color. And you can go with whatever color you want it to be. But I don't want it to be a strong grade. This is something where it just comes into a matter of taste and preference, opinion. It could be just as easily. It could be 434 and 435. With 435 still being my main color and 434 being my contrast color. As long as it's in the same family, that little bit of difference, you will see it. Just like on the peach versus light peach. So this array of colors, I can tell you, is what I did for At the Met. At the Met is I'm trying to put my colors back in my set so I don't mess them up. At the Met is a design by Mirabilia. I will insert a picture here. So at the Met, her main skin tone was 434. And depending on which colors I wanted to and depending on how many color changes there were in the skin tone, that's how many color changes I had in my conversion. So I don't remember off the top of my head how many changes there were, but it's the same concept. The first thing that I do, whether it's a kit with 1 color change, whether it's a kit with 2 color changes, whether it's a kit with 4 color changes, I'm taking all of my colors. I literally marked it on my pattern, which colors were for skin, and I took them all out. So if I have 4 different shades of peach that go from more of a peachy rosy color to more of a pale yellow, keep that in mind. And sometimes it takes some time playing around with the different color variations, where if you have a pattern with multiple skin colors, it's not always going to be something as cut and dried as picking out 2 colors, right? I'll use the Embrace as an example. The Embrace, for those of you that have been following me for some period of time, will know that I lost my dad back in January of 2016, early January of 2016. And I knew that I wanted to stitch something in his memory, because as stitchers, we put a lot of emotion in our stitching, and a lot of times when we lose people, we want to celebrate. We want to not celebrate, that's a poor choice of words, but we want to remember them and commemorate them in something that we stitch, just in the same exact way that you would stitch something to celebrate the birth of a child or a wedding or anniversary, something like that. We celebrate with our stitching, we mourn with our stitching. And the Embrace is a pattern design that came out by Design Works. And the moment I saw it, it literally took my breath away. I vividly remembered the moment. It was a very new design. And when I saw it, I ordered it from 123 Stitch. And if you look at this pattern, I'll insert a picture of it here. If you look at this design, it is a picture of a woman embracing someone that is not there. It's the shape of a man in negative space. And this could be interpreted, obviously, so many different ways. But I interpreted it as a woman that is hugging a man's spirit. And I knew in that moment that that was the design that I had to stitch for my dad. And one of the things that was very important to me is that it was representative of my father and I. So when you have something like the Embrace, where there is so much negative space, the first thing that I knew I had to do was choose a fabric that was representative of my father. And I say this to say that the Design Works kits often come with white Aida, which is perfectly fine, but I wasn't going to get the effect that I wanted by stitching on white Aida. I wanted the entire fabric to be representative of his skin. And I chose, what was the name of that fabric? Rust, I don't remember. It was an XJU design fabric, but it was a rusty brown. And my father was a very light-skinned man. He was much lighter in tone than I am. And I didn't want to go with just a beige fabric. So it doesn't always have to be matchy-matchy, but I definitely wanted the brown. I wanted the color. I wanted that in there. So even though I chose a fabric that was a rusty brown, it's all left to your interpretation. That fabric could have been any color, but those sometimes are things that you want to think about when you're doing a conversion. And obviously the woman that was hugging the spirit was a Caucasian woman in the design. And I wanted the woman to look like me, as much as it could possibly look like me. So I converted her skin, and that was a confetti heavy project, mostly in the flowers, but also in the skin. And I want to say there were at least 4 different colors. If I remember, it's been a couple of years since I stitched that, but it was definitely more than one color. The main color that I chose was a Victorian Motto sampler thread, which had 20 yards per skein, so I knew I wouldn't run out. But I chose the variations based on what came in the kit. So I took all of the skin colors, I would line them up, then I would take my chosen colors and I would make sure that that variation in color was similar. It didn't have to be exact, but if I had a peach color that was going to a more of a rosy color, I would choose my main color and make sure that it was something that was going more of a reddish tone, something that was going in more of a direction with a reddish tone. Maybe not going in a yellowy tone or an olive tone. And you just have to pay attention to things like that. It's not an exact science, but if you get the shading variation down, that is a very important piece. Odds are your conversion will come out beautifully. There might be times when you're stitching and you're like, you know what, I don't like how this is looking. That's okay. It's the same thing if you're changing a dress. Say, for example, her dress is all black, right? Black, and you see there's shades of gray in there, dark grays, light grays. Let's see if we can look at this rather quickly. And I'm doing this on the fly. I haven't looked at this pattern this deeply to be able to choose it. So what you're seeing is typically what I would go through. So if I know that this main color of the dress is black, the first thing I'm going to look at is how many different colors are there. There's 1, 2, 3. Let's just take a few of these colors. So the main color is going to be black, right? Say that I want her main color. This might be a mistake doing this live. The main color is black. Say I'm going to make her dress royal blue. 820 blue, right? So she's no longer going to have a black dress. She is going to have a dress in the main color of 820. I'm going to set that aside. So the next thing I'm going to look at is the shading right here along her butt. See how it goes light and dark gray? I'm going to look at that area next. So in that area, it looks like there are 1, 2, 3 different colors. So we have black, we have a dark gray blue. So the next color is a dark gray blue, which, let me see. Okay. Dark gray blue, gray, blue gray, is there lavender in her dress? Let me see. I'm really just looking at all of these variations of colors. No lavender. There it is. All right. So let's see. So this variation from, start with the gray, right? This variation from black to gray, right here, it's not going to show up clearly. It's not going to show up clearly. So I'm looking at obviously black, and then I'm going to a dark steel gray, okay? Which in my mind is still, if you take black and you lighten it with something like white, that's how you get gray. So if I have this beautiful cobalt blue and I lighten it with something like white, I know I'm going to get a light blue. Maybe not something as light as a sky blue, because this is still a dark gray. I hope you guys are with me. It's something where if I'm looking at this black, if I took that much white, it would turn to this dark steel gray. So if I have this dark blue and I added a drop of white, I don't know why I keep snapping my fingers, what color would I get? In my mind, right? I might get something like 803. which is a dark, it's like a steely gray blue. Dark steely gray blue, that's what I'm calling it. So that in my mind would be how I would convert that black, that sharp black, to gray blue, which is still in the same color family, right? But it's a lighter version without going too light. I hope you guys are staying with me. I'm not sure if I'm explaining this correctly. So the next color that I would look at in this conversion would be dark gray blue, where there are two strands. So this dark gray blue is more similar to the gray that I just looked at. It's actually very similar to the gray that I just looked at. So I'm no longer comparing it to the black. Now I'm comparing how much of a variation is there between that steel gray that I just looked at that's in the pattern to this blue gray that's in the pattern. It's not much of a difference. It's a little bit darker. It's a little bit bluer. So I might go with something like 825, where it's a different shade of that other contrast color that I just looked at, but it's still, if I'm looking at the blue gray and the gray, they're very similar. If I'm looking at these two blues, they're very similar, but one is just, I don't know, it's hard to explain, but I am making sure that there's still enough contrast from that main color, which was initially black, but is now this beautiful cobalt blue, and still enough difference between these two contrast colors. So now I start to go into my next contrast color, which again is a gray blue, but it's much lighter than that color that I just picked out. And it almost looks like they're in the same family, color family, just a little bit lighter. So if I'm looking at that last color that I picked out, I want something that's in the same color family, but a little bit lighter, same like I did with her skin tone. So if I picked 825, but I want it to be a little bit lighter, but not too light. Might go with something like 334. Yeah, it's a little bit lighter, but not too light. And I'm doing this quickly for the sake of the video, but make no mistake, this is something that takes a lot of playing around. It takes time, really looking at the original colors versus the comparison of your new color palette. So I'm just kind of going through the motions of what I would look at. And then the final color is a very light blue in comparison to those steely blue grays that were in the original pattern. So I want to go with something that is still in the same family, but much lighter, because it's clearly a contrast color. I might pick something like, I'm looking for something that is still in the blue gray family, but much lighter. So I might pick out something like 775, which is like this icy blue, right? So instead of having these blacks and grays that are initially in her dress, these blacks and grays, this is a terrible, terrible display that I'm giving you. So you see the black, you see the grays, the light color right there. Instead of her those blacks and grays as in this original picture, now I have an array of blues for the conversion. The same colorways, the same array of 5 different colors, but now they're all, you have my main color, this dark cobalt blue, and these are my 4 contrasting colors. So again, you're not measuring everything up against this main color. Sometimes you're measuring comparing the contrast colors to the contrast colors. And again, this is something where if it weren't for the video, I would probably take a lot more time to go through that color process, because if I'm matching it up and I'm comparing it, do I like how this ice blue looks in comparison to 334? You know, does it capture that same variation as in the pattern? Do I think that these colors mesh well together, or is this more, am I picking colors that are a little bit too gray blue? And that's the process. It's a timely process. You know, you have a time consuming process, and you want to take your time and go through it and do floss tosses, you know, see, is this really what you want it to look like? But what I am confident about is, even if this color palette of blues was my final choice, I'm confident enough just in doing it in that quick few minutes that it took to pick out these blues. I am confident that I wouldn't have a dress that looks crazy, but do I have a dress that really brings out the colors that I want it to be? That's the question that you have to ask yourself. But that's how I go through my skin tone conversion process. I've never converted a dress. I've never had a desire to convert a dress color. But it's the same exact process as you would choose to convert a skin tone. Hopefully that makes sense. Hopefully that was helpful to some of you. And I hope that I explained it clearly. But I just wanted to take some time for this Flossmas video to talk about skin conversions, because we might want to have some Hispanic or Native American or Black Santas floating around out there, and you need to know how to do that if that's what we want to do. So that is my update on skin conversions. I do want to share with you how I have been celebrating Flossmas in my own particular way. So I will show you what I've been working on. All right. So as I mentioned, I don't stitch anything seasonal or related to holidays. I don't. And this was actually purely by accident. Well, not by accident. It just ended up being something for Flossmas because it ended up looking festive. So for Friday Off the Grid High Tea for the month of November, I chose to start, I'm going to mispronounce this, Sans Souci. I don't know if that's French. I might be making it harder than it has to be. I decided to start this long dog sampler. And I felt, this is the pattern, Sans Souci. I don't know, I don't speak French. So I can tell you right now, I purchased this because number one, it's a long dog and I love long dogs. And number two, it has an elephant in it. And I'm a sucker for an elephant, especially when it's being ridden by an owl. You know? So I decided to start that, and I was choosing a floss, and I wanted to use something in my stash. So my stash, I happen to have, I used to be a part of Trisha's Nest Egg from 3 Owl Threads, and I had a 5-yard skein of Threadworks Bleeding Hearts, which I thought was a beautiful variegated red. It is not this red. It is a deep burgundy. That's accurate. It's like a deep burgundy Merlot wine color red. Yeah, it's about right. So I had a 5-yard skein of that, and I decided I was going to give that a try. Instantly fell in love with it. And I ordered a couple more 20-yard skeins because obviously I would need more. So this is my start on this pattern, and I thought it looked kind of festive with the red. So I was like, okay, well, I'm just going to stitch this for the first 2 weeks of December because I've been working on a 2-week rotation. So this is where we are as of day 11. Actually, it's as of day 10. I'm recording this in advance. Now you know my secrets. So this is where we are as of day 10. And I kind of fell down a rabbit hole because I was feeling festive and I wanted to participate in Flossmas. And I decided, okay, I'm going to post daily pictures of this in the Friday Off the Grid group. And I'm going to use the 12 days of Christmas and I'm going to make a song about my stitching based on the 12 days of Christmas. And I say I've gotten myself into a rabbit hole because here we are on day 10 and I am struggling. I'm struggling. How am I going to make it through these next 2 days? What am I going to sing about? So as an added treat in true Flossmas style, I will sing the song that I've composed based off of the first 10 days of stitching. When this is posted, you would have already heard day 10, so I would share it with you now. Okay? And I'll try to point out the areas that I'm singing about. I have to look down because I don't have it memorized. I'm not a professional. All right, so on the first day of Christmas, wait a minute, I messed up already. Okay, rewind. On the first day of Flossmas, my stitching gave to me a partridge on a reindeer. On the second day of Flossmas, my stitching gave to me 2 French knots and a partridge on a reindeer. On the third day of Flossmas, my stitching gave to me 3 Frankie paws, 2 French knots, and a partridge on a reindeer. On the fourth day of Flossmas, my stitching gave to me 4 dragonfly wings, 3 Frankie paws, 2 French knots, and a partridge on a reindeer. On the 5th day of Christmas, my stitching gave to me 5 yards of used floss, 4 dragonfly wings, 3 Frankie paws, 2 French knots, and a partridge on a reindeer. On the 6th day of Christmas, my stitching gave to me 6 border flowers, 5 yards of used floss, 4 dragonfly wings, 3 Frankie paws, 2 French knots, and a partridge on a reindeer. On the 7th day of Christmas, my stitching gave to me 17 hours of adulting, no stitching, 6 border flowers, 5 yards of used floss. What have I done? What have I done? 4 dragonfly wings, 3 Frankie paws, 2 French knots, and a partridge on a reindeer. On the 8th day of Flossmas, my stitching gave to me 8 marshland grasses, 17 hours of adulting, 6 border flowers, 5 yards of used floss, 4 dragonfly wings, 3 Frankie paws, 2 French knots, and a partridge on a reindeer. On the 9th day of Flossmas, my stitching gave to me 9 bows of bending, 8 marshland grasses, 17 hours of adulting, 6 border flowers, 5 yards of used floss, 4 dragonfly wings, 3 Frankie paws, 2 French knots, and a partridge on a reindeer. On the 10th day of Christmas, my stitching gave to me 10 pyramids pointing, 9 bows of bending, 8 marshland grasses, 17 hours of adulting, 6 border flowers, 5 yards of used floss, 4 dragonfly wings, 3 Frankie paws, 2 French knots, and a partridge on a reindeer. dear. When good decisions go bad. Happy Flossmas, everyone. Good night.